Alright, so this video is about the ongoing influence of the Cold War and Cold War propaganda. And, I come from a long line of the leftist political tradition in the United States. My parents were involved in protesting the Vietnam War and in the later days of the Civil Rights Movement. And, I think that we forget in this generation to critically analyze and remember the importance of the Cold War and the struggle between communism and capitalism, specifically American empire in the West, and third world anti-imperialist movements. And, we need to recognize that these people's movements were subject to relentless campaigns of propaganda aimed at the American people and the rest of the world to convince people that they were evil movements. Obviously, you look at the history of the Soviet Union, you look at the history of Cuba, you look at the history of Vietnam, you look at the history of all these communist projects, anti-imperialist projects around the world, Gaddafi and so on, and you see a relentless campaign of propaganda being aimed at these nations and these projects to demonize them, to cast them in the harshest possible light. And, I think we need to recognize the impact that this has had. We have these historical models that we can look to for liberation movements. We have these historical struggles that we can point to. We have heroes that we can learn from. Although, of course, nobody is without their flaws and without their mistakes, many times serious ones. But we need to look to these historic movements. We need to look to Ho Chi Minh and Yap and the struggle of the Vietnamese people against first French colonization and then American imperialism. And, we need to learn from these effective, potent people's grassroots revolutionary movements around the world and not just dismiss them because they have been demonized in the American eye. And, when these right-wing fascists and, American imperialists demonize these people and these movements, they do it very deliberately and strategically. It's an important thing for them to do because they recognize that these movements are dangerous. They represent a tendency within the human spirit, within human communities, to fight for freedom, to recognize oppression when it's taking place, to recognize imperialism, and to fight against it. And, so we need to be very careful and aware that this is taking place, and we need to deliberately work against it. We need to study these movements. We need to learn people's history, learn revolutionary history, and study it as much as we can so that we can learn the lessons that are taught by these movements, both their successes and their failures, because that is absolutely critical right now as we're moving into this time of increasing fascism and right-wing upsurgence all around the world. We need to take heart and take knowledge and take wisdom from these revolutionary struggles of the past and of today that have taken place all around the world, and learn every possible thing from them that we can, and hold them up as of examples of people fighting for dignity, fighting for protection from imperialism, fighting for just the ability to live and exist outside of capitalism. And, fighting for the planet, fighting for their land, fighting for their territories. And, we need that. Right now is the time that we need that. So this is my call to all of you. Study these movements, learn everything that you can from them, because now's the time that we need that stuff more than ever.